guys, it's Kayla
and Jan,
and welcome to
Latte and Foam. So yeah, we're back, guys. This is a very old video, like chopped into two. We did our Otome news video obviously months ago, and then we had recorded this on the back end. It just got too long, and so now we're just giving you the second half. That's why our chibis are at the beginning, because we already did an intro and this is the other half.
Yep, so let's just roll the clip. Okay, so now getting into our initial segment for this video, which is me choosing a game that I don't think Jan would play for herself, but that I think she would like, and then Jan choosing a game that she thinks I wouldn't play for myself, but she thinks I would like. And not full games, but actually just a specific route and a voltage route, so we could finish it quickly. Because I feel like we could do multiple of these. If you guys like this concept, let us know in the comments below. But she picked for me Kyohei Rikudoh, the lead singer and like producer of Revance in the game. What is the name of the game again? Scandal in the Spotlight.
I almost said, what the hell is bad? But that's because we were just talking about it, so it's like hard when I'm trying to remember all these titles.
The first thing in my notes says Star-Crossed Myth, so I almost said that, and I was like, that's not the game. But what I was saying in my notes is that he reminds me of Leon from Star-Crossed Myth. Because he's like the leader. They have a pretty close personality match. I don't know if they're the same zodiac sign. I'm sure I could find that on the wiki, but they're just like more commanding. He's the lead member and producer of Revance, which is a long-standing J-pop group that's been going on 10 years of success. And I really kind of like that in this game, in Scandal in the Spotlight. Like, it's them 10 years into their career. So it's like them like further along. I thought that was interesting, and I like that we did that with Hero too. Like, it wasn't the very beginning of his like rise to fame. It was like after a little bit, because you get kind of the nuances of like changing and things that go on after being together for like 10 years and performing. But yeah, at the start of the game, you're thrust into writing for Revance's 10th anniversary song, and let's talk about how you got there. I wrote a little synopsis. So you're an aspiring screenwriter in the prologue, and you're currently handling lower level work, and basically you're just trying to get the foot in the door in that industry, and you like to frequent this little cafe where you feel like you can get a lot of writing work done out. And you become a regular there, and you get to know one of the waiters named Makoto really well. And one day, Makoto tells you that he's going to be leaving his job there, but you were always such a great customer to him, so he has a parting gift for you, which are 2 tickets to the Revance concert. And you kind of like aren't a pop girly. Like, I feel like she's kind of a pick-me in that sense, because she's like, I don't know, like they're okay, like I guess I'll see what they're about.
I'm not even really into it. Can you imagine being who Makoto is and being like, shut up, bitch?
I know, seriously. But you're like, oh, my little best friend who's into that girly shit likes Revance, so I'll take her.
I guess.
And you go, it's like that night, like the night of the prologue, and this is your introduction to all the boys of Revance, and I kind of like how they do it, because it's like them coming on stage, and it really reminded me of like in Uta no Pri when they're like, I need you S, and they all have like a little moment on stage, and so it will like kind of freeze frame, and it kind of talks about that person. So then a song comes on that they start playing, kind of think about it in your head, like, the lyrics sound really familiar. Then during that time period, you get interrupted because your friend says something about it being a 6-member group, but you've only seen 5 guys. So you're like, well, who's the 6th member? Your friend is like, oh, it's Rio. Like, don't you know? He's the mysterious 6th member, and he's the writer. And you're like, okay, cool.
She's like, of course I don't know. This is the first time I ever heard them.
So apparently, the reason she brings it up is because you talk about the lyrics and he's the writer. And so that's like your little factoid that you take in your back pocket. But after the show, you run into the chief editor at the company you work at, and he asks you and your friend if you want to go to like a little celeb after party. And this guy is so creepy, like so creepy. He's older man, he has glasses. They make him look like kind of sweaty, just like leering. Kind of looks like Harvey Weinstein.
Ew, you're so right. Sorry.
Doesn't he? Like, he's based on Harvey Weinstein. He starts being hella weird at the party, and the Revance idols who are at said celebrity after party are kind of seeing this happen. You reject your boss, and he leaves angrily in a funny fashion because his toupee falls off, and like the Revance guys are like, oh, you dropped your toupee. Like after, you're like, okay, that ended up being a pretty fun party, but you're kind of like, I had that awkward moment with my boss, like the chief editor of the company. I don't know if I still have a job. And then a staff member comes up to you, and they give you a key and ask you to go to the presidential suite. Okay.
I'm surprised she would decide to go, because I would think that my boss is gonna try to rape me, so.
though.
Yes, like she doesn't really think about that much, but like she just had the thought that she's not sure she has her job anymore, and she doesn't know where her boss went, and then she randomly gets approached about a key. So like my first thought is Harvey Weinstein. He wants me in the room.
I'm
like,
running. I'm
definitely leaving. But you get there and it's all of the Revance members informing you that you're going to be their new ghostwriter because their sixth member, the writer Ryo, has decided to run away, and he gave specific instructions that you are the group's new writer. And they drop it on you that the song that you thought was familiar during the show earlier was actually poetry that you wrote in your book that you gave to Ryo, even though he stole it, because you didn't give that to anyone. And so they're, because you say that you don't do that stuff. And so they're like, well, listen, that song that you just heard, that new song, that was you. Like, I don't know if you realize that was your poetry. So clearly you can do it. And you're like, oh shit, okay. Then you're like thinking, I don't know this Ryo guy though. So like, how could I have given him those lyrics? Well, how did you get the tickets? And you're like, well, Makoto gave them to me, like the waiter at the cafe. And they're like, oh, the waiter, that's Ryo. Like he just does that, like his little daily stuff.
No proof of this.
And you're just like,
what if she lied? Can you imagine if she lied? She's like, I bought them.
Me, just to get out of the situation. Basically, you tell them, no, like, I'm not about that life. Like, I don't want to do it. Like, and her whole thing is she doesn't want to be a lyricist. Like, she wants to be, like, a screenplay writer. Like, she's, like, all into the Broadway show, I guess. So
sis, you're nothing at the very current moment.
Yeah, you're, like, in the very beginning of your career. But the next day, when you arrive at work, you realize that you're out of a job because your boss is like, get out of here, like, no, it's over. And so you realize you really have no choice but to accept Revance's offer because that means you're going to be able to live with them, your bills are going to be paid. So you're at the Idol House on the first day, they tell you about the fact that you're going to have to write a new song for them for their 10th anniversary, and you're like just trying to get settled in. And when you're in the bath relaxing and you start to hear something, you're like, who is it that I see beyond the smoke? That's how you choose whose route you're on. And so I chose Kyohei because that is what Yon chose for me. And I was like apprehensive to choose him because he has an interesting casual outfit. It's like a scarf with like a cheetah print.
It gives Bret Michaels from Rock of Love.
Yeah, so I was just like, I don't know if I would like fuck with him, but I ended up really liking his route. So that's how his route gets picked. It's like a little saucy moment.
He asked if you're a virgin. He's like, oh my God, are you a virgin? It's like, who are you?
They constantly do that when you are embarrassed for them to see you naked in any Voltage game. They're like, what, are you a virgin? And you're like, no, I just don't.
Called consent.
Like, what are you talking about? So the next day, Kyohei gives you what he wants for the 10th anniversary song. And he says he wants something sexy. So, and like that kind of calls back to like how you said he asked about you being a virgin. So you have to write erotic lyrics and like you're really not that experienced in the eroticisms of life. And this leads to a lot of Kyohei asking you inappropriate questions, borderlining on sexual harassment at times. Like, he stopped short of that though. So like that was one thing, like I didn't like the conversations that were going on sometimes, but he never fully takes it there. It does anything to her. Like you know, like for example, Ota, like he doesn't do anything like that. It's all, he's kind of all talk. Yeah, he alternates between heavy flirting and then he'll be really mean. Strong arms her into the situation of being a ghostwriter. Like when you will express doubts in the beginning, he basically threatens to ruin your career. So I didn't like that piece. I was like, okay, first of all, my career's already ruined, so you would ruin it.
I could also ruin yours. Like,
so
no
true.
matter if it's truthful or not, the tabloids will eat up that you're, one, blackmailing me, two, that your writer ran off, and that I know the said writer, and that you basically stole my lyrics and didn't clear it. Any paper, any reporter would eat that shit up. They don't even care if it's not true, they would eat it up.
Yeah, because like, I don't,
yum, yum, yum.
I don't know if I made this clear enough, but she did not give the poetry to Ryo. Like, he just took it, like when she went to the bathroom or something, which will come up later in like this game, but she has got to stop writing it on hard paper with no password and leaving it out places, because people are gonna steal the lyrics, and I'm just saying, it happens a lot. But you basically realize from all of these things that are adding up that Kyohei is definitely a shark when it comes to the industry. First, they acting as his assistant manager, because that's what they're saying you are, because they're obviously not going to say that something happened to their writer publicly, or but you're on a variety show, and the first half is supposed to be Revance, and then the second half of the variety show is going to be this up-and-coming boy group called Grenade. Kyohei decides that he's gonna get them kicked off the show, and he does. Like, as soon as he hears, oh, an upcoming group, nah, we're pulling some strings and we're getting them kicked off. and they're not gonna get to shine anymore than Revance. And MC is upset because she's like, they're brand new and like you're a 10-year-long group, you're not even in the same competition, like why not have them, like give them a little shine. And I agree with her at this point. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I didn't like that either, because later she kind of was like, I understand how like hard he strives for them. It's like, they were no competition to him at all, like in any way, because they obviously were modeled after them. And if you're saying after 10 years that you're not solid in your place, then maybe you're in the wrong career. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Oh, and Kyohei's dad is famous too, or was, because he's dead.
Yeah. Kyohei's dad was famous.
Sorry.
And I hate how
I do that a lot.
I hate how they turn it into this thing where it's like, it seems like for some reason that gives him a pass. Like, because his dad passed away, so he's definitely like, he doesn't have that to fall back on. Like, he has to make sure that he proves himself to be the #1 idol, just like his dad was. Like, that means it's okay for him to be an asshole and like kick people when they're down. And like, I don't know, I feel like you could definitely like help up and comers, and like, that's just more proof of like how great you are. But whatever. He says he's gonna do anything to ensure the success of their group, and like everyone's like, that's just like our leader, that's like how he is. Or not our leader, because there's a different leader, that's our producer.
That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, there's a, I played leader's route. What's his name, Taka? Something?
Taka, and Taka makes little to no decisions.
No.
So I don't understand that.
He doesn't, he just be making beats in the back. But I really loved his route. As the days go on, you start to notice that Kyohei is all talk and no action. Like I said earlier, his teasing never really fully means anything, and he's just saying things like he's not actually gonna do anything. And deep down, you start to feel like he's nice and that he actually does sincerely want you to succeed in your role as their lyricist. The scene that confirms that is after Kyohei says some mean things to you about your career as a writer when you produce a lackluster first draft of a song.
Well, just as I thought, trash.
You tell him you don't think you're cut out for it, and he says, it sounds like you just want to run away from your career as a screenwriter. And you guys get into it, and the next day, he asks you to meet him in Shibuya at 3 o'clock, and when you do, he's not there, but you check the time, and as soon as the clock strikes 3, the song that Ryo stole your lyrics for plays on the big screen. And everyone in Shibuya Crossing is like, oh, this is so amazing, the lyrics are so touching. And then Kyohei comes up behind you, just in sunglasses, like, cause so no one will know who he is. And he's like, see, you really are talented. And I thought that was a cute moment, like despite some of like the quirks, like, you know, the stolen lyrics and the fact that he's just wearing sunglasses.
She never gets mad about that, and I find that like, fuck you guys, you stole my shit. Like, let's talk about it.
Yeah,
let's discuss how you owe me compensation and how horrible that was.
This has happened to you or a loved one. Call us right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation.
I don't trust you, and we need to build trust for good. Like, oh, I'm worried you're gonna run away. Really? I'm worried you're gonna keep stealing my shit.
Yeah, like they also like heavily coerce her. Does she ever, because you've played like way later seasons than I have, does she ever go back to her screenwriting dream, or does she just fully become a lyricist?
In this like sequel, she does, yeah, like immediately.
Okay. That's cool. I'm glad they did that, because like I feel like they
give her like opportunity. Yeah, they give her opportunity right away. Like, it does cause like tension because she's like torn, like, do I want to be a lyricist or do I want to be a screenwriter? I think Iori's like the first one to be like, you know, you could do both because you really don't have anything else to do.
It's like, doesn't take her that long to like write, actually sometimes it takes her forever to write lyrics, but like when she's like in the mode of it, so you would think she would have time to start working on some screenplays.
I understand that though, because when I had to write 5 lines of lyrics for a hero, I was like, I hate this.
That was like the hardest part, because we didn't want it to sound cheesy. I did the same thing for, in Minoru's route, he has like a little piece, and I was like, this is so hard. Key story point, I don't know if it was the next day or not, is you go back to the cafe and you meet Makoto/Ryo to do some writing. Ryo's not there, he's still missing in action. And another customer sees you working hard and orders you desserts. And he comes up to tell you that he bought that for you, which is funny because it's like, if you wanted to just like selflessly buy me something, like don't walk up and be like, I bought that for you, just so you know. Like, you're like, okay, thank you. And you find out his name is Shuya. Then, at the next shoot you're at with the boys, by a stroke of luck, you see Shuya, that guy again, and you thank him again.
Stroke of luck my ass. Like, seem like you've been on my ass, bro. Like, you've seen me.
Yeah, it seems a little bit contrived. But you see him again, you thank him again about the desserts, and you ask why he's there, like, because it's like a studio of some sort, and he says he's a music producer. And then Kyohei comes up and is like, what are you doing here, Shinya, and what are you doing with her? And you're like shook, and Shinya is like, I want to work with you again, to Kyohei. And you're again like, what's going on? And then it basically comes out that Shinya was a former producer of revamps, but they dropped him somehow, and Kyohei is like, stop stalking me, get out of my face. Like, they seem like they have bad blood. And Shinya is like, no, let me help you. I can make you surpass your father, which is like, at this point, like, they've already done that, like 10 years into the group. And you're like, oh, so that's why he's so cutthroat, is he feels like he hasn't passed his father's fame. And you're like, I wonder who his father is. But Kyohei has to go do lines or something, and you're just there with Shinya, and Shinya's like, let me take you to dinner. And you're like, oh, I don't think Kyohei would like that based on how this interaction just went. But you're thinking, well, maybe I can find out who Kyohei's dad is if I go with Shinya. And I'm just like, you could just Google that at any point. Like, it's a very public info. You don't have to go on a date with Shinya to get that information, but like that's—
You can also ask anybody else in the house.
Anybody, any member, even Kyohei himself. Like, you didn't try that yet.
Yeah, he never said he wouldn't do it. You just didn't.
You just assume. But you're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna do this like on the low, but because I know it'll piss Kyohei off, I'm just gonna lie and say that my parents are in town, and so I have to go to dinner with them. And I just feel like that's such a bad decision on her part. But you do go to dinner with Shinya, and he does tell you about Kyohei's dad, and he says that he and Kyohei were childhood friends, and at 5 years old, Kyohei drowned, and his dad went to go save him and ended up dying himself, which is interesting. That same exact thing is the like, well, it's like a story that they make up in that movie, The Truman Show.
The other problem too was like, he obviously openly had children, and so the whole thing of this is that like, oh, you can't date publicly. But it's like, but your dad did.
And that makes absolutely no sense, because back then it would have been even worse. Like, because if we're assuming like this is modern time, so you have to like minus like 20 years ago or whatever, it was worse. Like, you couldn't just have kids like super young, and like, even though you're a top male idol, you're supposed to seem single and like attainable, like, which I don't agree with. I don't think that's how it should be, but that's how it is. And so the fact that that never gets brought up, like, I feel like that would be like a really interesting thing to talk about, but they missed the opportunity to talk about it. So then after that lovely date you have with Shinya, he's like, let's go on another date to a Grenade concert, like, which was that up and coming group. And you agree to go to that Grenade concert, I guess. And then you're shook the next day at the beach, because as soon as you're there on like this beach shoot that you're at, like, what all you can think about when you look at the ocean waves is like little baby Kyohei drowning and his dad dying and like all this dark stuff. It's super dramatic. It's like too dramatic for my taste personally, because she just comes off like very like pick me and like in her head. So Kyohei comes into your room again, like he does, to check on how it's coming, and he's noticeably softer to you, and he says like, it's no big deal, like it's no pressure if you can't think of lyrics right away, whereas previously he was really pressuring you. So you're like, you feel kind of bad that you're like going to that Grenade concert, but you still go to the Grenade concert with Shinya, and you find out there that Shinya is actually producing Grenade. So it's like kind of like, and you've already said it in your head that they're, in a sense, I guess, even though they shouldn't be, they're, I guess, a rival for revamps, because Kyohei tried to shut them down. So it's basically another date with Shinya, and Shinya afterwards confesses that he knows you're the ghostwriter. And you're like, what? Because he heard Kyo calling you Ghost all the time, which is kind of dumb on their part to be doing that out in public. He tries to plead with you to write a song for Grenade and his company instead. And then Kyohei appears at the concert and saves you from the scary situation and says he won't let you have his ghost. And he was just like there checking out the competition, I guess. So the next day, the two of you go out together because he wants to take you on a date to get ideas pumping for your romantic, erotic song, which I thought was kind of funny that they glossed over the fact that you're just like hanging out with the enemy. Like, he never like gets mad at you for it, which I found was like kind of weird, because I'd be pissed. Like, that's my #1 enemy.
Yeah, like even on like a friend level, I'd have been like, well, good thing that you didn't finish those lyrics, because we're done.
Exactly. And plus he was threatening to like end your career earlier, so it's like, wouldn't this be the pushing point to like go ahead and end that career
This is
first?
a career ender. I'm gonna be like, she's a slut.
He takes you to his dad's gravesite, and he says he knew that you knew about his dad ever since that beach day because it was so obvious the way that you were looking at the sea and like being weird and like, are you okay, Kyohei?
It was.
And MC is like, isn't it just weird of you to take me to meet your dad? And I thought that was so wild.
You went on a whole date to go find out about the dad, but now it's weird that he's taking you to get to know him. Shut up.
Yeah, and also it's like a private thing. Like, even let's say it was weird, like let's say I wasn't close enough with a person and like, but like for whatever reason they wanted to show me their parents' grave site because it was like the anniversary or something. I'm gonna be respectful. Like, I'm not gonna be like, this is fucking weird of you. Like, that's so mean. And it's wild then because you scrape your finger on something and Kyohei sucks it out in front of the grave. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, now it's just getting awkward. And Kyohei tells you that he thinks you're magic at writing lyrics. Like, they're like flirting in front of the grave.
She isn't though. She wrote one song.
Yeah. I did feel like this section, like getting up to this point was a little bit stilted with like their romance because it was like, just like the lines were kind of weird. Like, she's like, weirded out, he doesn't get mad at her for the previous thing, and then like they start like sucking on each other's fingers and like it's just weird. Then he takes you to this old style house and you get stuck there because it starts raining. So there's some romantic scenes with you here, and I did like those romantic scenes. I feel like they were built better. And you start to feel like the way that Kyohei makes you feel in this moment is gonna make you a better writer. And the next day at the studio, you run into Shuya again, and he says that he likes you and asks you to be his girlfriend because you guys have already gone on dates. And you're like, sorry, I can't return your feelings. And Kyohei sees that. And that night, Kyohei comes into your room and flirts with you, and he holds your hands and looks into your eyes, all in the name of writing good lyrics. And you start to really fall for him, and you do write a pretty banging song after like that little sweet moment. Because like, he's like with you and he's like acts like he's gonna kiss you, but then you're like, no, and then like you write the song. Like, I feel like at this point the romance was getting good. You're excited to show them your amazing song that you just wrote, but before you get the chance, you run into Shuya again, and he basically steals the song from you. He blackmails you into it, and you don't want Kyohei in trouble, so you just hand the song over to him, and now you have no song to show the boys. And Grenade actually releases a super fire hit that gains a ton of popularity, and you hear it on the radio when you're in the studio, and like the Kyohei and the boys are like, damn, this is actually like a pretty fire track, and like you just like know that it's your track, and you're just like, dang, this sucks. And you kind of like make a self-deprecating comment, but Kyohei continues to be encouraging towards you even when you do that, and it just makes you feel even more guilty, and you can't write. So one night you decide, I'm not writing the song, I need to write something fast. So I'm gonna go over to his room for the first time, because normally he comes to your room in the house, and ask him to make love to me, because then you know that you'll be able to write a good song. And I was like, oh, this is saucy. Like, at this point, I was really feeling like the feels. And it's a very passionate moment, and the two of you start kissing, and he gets on top of you, but then he stops and he says that he can't make love to you. And when you ask why, he says he can tell you after you finish the song. But because you guys like made out and there was like this whole intense moment between you guys and like the words that were exchanged, you felt like you were able to write an even better song than that first song, and you do. And after finishing it, you're excited that it's done, but your guilt is just too great. So you decide to write a letter about how you betrayed him and gave your original song to Grenade, and you'll be out of their lives from now on, but you give them the new song, and you still want to hear how Kyohei and Revans perform that new song, but you couldn't get tickets to the show, so you just hang out by the stadium and try to like hear it outside, like all the other unlucky fans do. And when you get there, Shuya shows up again, and he begs you to go out with him. And he says he thinks you're so talented, that song you wrote for Grenade, and he wants you, and you say you're not a talented writer, and that you're actually just in love with Kyohei, and that's like the source for all of your romantic lyrics. And then Shuya says, okay, I get it, you're in love with Kyohei, but he obviously isn't gonna want you considering how you betrayed him, and he's like hella famous. So he's like, I can just accept being like second best to Kyohei, but could you please still like try it out with me? And he's like being very pressury, and you feel super uncomfortable and you don't know how to get out of the situation. But all of a sudden, Kyohei shows up. He says he's been looking for you, and he tells Shuya that he loves you and he came to get you. And a crowd starts noticing what's going on, and then all of a sudden, Shuya like changes his tune, and is like, I wasn't in my right mind earlier, like you two should be together, and like I'm gonna cover for you here. And I thought that was really weird because like they're building Shuya up to be this like pushy villain that was like super obsessed with MC, and then like in an instant like he's like, nah, you two are perfect for each other. And I was like, okay.
Like, we're running out of chapters, guys, so we can't keep doing this.
This is like the last chapter, so that's like why. But Kyohei gets you front row tickets. He plays the song that you wrote, and he actually has a part 2 to that song that he wrote, which is clearly about you. And then at the end, he says he's going to bring a lucky fan up on the stage, and he picks you to be the fan that comes up on the stage. The crowd cheers, and then he takes you backstage, picks you up, kisses you. The two of you have a little heated moment, but then the crowd's like, encore, encore. And he's like, all right, I'm gonna go back out there. He's like, has his hand over you in the back. And then you're like, okay, do it, babe. And then he like goes back out on stage, and that ends the story. But yeah, like it was cute. It was cute. It like wasn't too heavy. Like they didn't get any crazy arguments. Like they had really good passion for each other, and I really liked Kyohei's like transformation as far as like being more hard and then really softening up to her. I always love that. I love that kind of style. So yeah, that was Kyohei. I loved it. I thought it was a good recommendation, and I'm glad I played it.
Yeah. No, I love Kyohei. I like his whole story. He was not the first one I played. Iori was, and no, Koto was the first one I played. And he was so boring. His main story was horribly boring. But his other stories were like pretty decent. He reminds me of a cat. And then I played Iori, and I realized I think I might have a degradation kink, and then
Iori's mean, guys. Like he's mean. I played Iori first too because I just thought the way he comes off initially, they do a bait and switch on him. They're like, he's the prince, and like he's like so charming and gentlemanly. So I was like, yes. So I clicked play, and then he was just an asshole all the way through.
And the assholes really like locked it down for me. He was just mean, and I was like, I'm into it.
Even at the end, like usually they come around, but
he's not even nice. Yeah, he wasn't nice ever. He's not ever nice.
So do you want to go through, tell us about Shuya?
Yeah, so before we even ever talked about this, Kayla had played Shuya, and she's like, I like his route so much. But this was back in my more judgmental days, and I was like, I'm not into teacher routes. I'm simply, you got me twisted. No. You had just played Joji too, and I was like, disgusting.
I was like just opening up to them because I was the same way. I like wasn't really into the age gap relationships, but then like I played Joji and it was so good. So I was like, ooh, maybe I like this. So I started playing a bunch of teacher outs, and she was like, you do your own thing with that. Like I'm not into that.
Yeah. I was like, you gross. Anyway, so she was like, no, you just have to play Shuya's. It's like a really good route. I confused my private homeroom and after school affairs. For whatever reason, I convinced myself that they came out at the same time, but they didn't. Anyway, so she was just, I was like, no, I'm not into it. Don't like it. Don't want to do it. She literally Venmo'd me the $3.99. She said, just try it out. And I was like, let this be weird one time and I'm done with your ass. Like,
specifically the reason I selected this to be the teacher route that I recommend to her, because like other ones, like it can get weird and the age gap is like quite large, but this one it's like lower. Like they're childhood friends. It kind of reminds me, his personality reminds me of just like your big brother's friend. For example, in Cardcaptor Sakura, Yuki, like his personality kind of. So I thought he's not aggressive and weird and like high school girls. Like it's not like that. He's like a brand new teacher. So I was like, this is the perfect one to ease her into it. And now you're like into the teacher route.
I'm slowly getting around to them because I'm 28 now. But
you're
like,
willing to do them, I'll say that.
I'm willing to try them out. To give just a background, your character's 18, and I just appreciate the fact that you're also in your third year of high school, which is your last year of high school. Appreciate that they're 18. I think sometimes what bothers me is that they will purposely make them like 16. It's like 17. I'm like, yeah, I just wish we didn't do that. Like this route kind of reminded me of the characters in Daytime Shooting Star. The characters, he calls her Tweety, and the teacher's name now escapes me. There is like the dynamic between them. It doesn't work out. In my opinion, the better. I wish that she wasn't 16 because I'm like, she's a first year and you're 24 and it's just weird.
What I really liked was that they actually made her 18 and like about to graduate. They also do that in Class Trip Crush. No, they do. Sorry, I was gonna say, I don't think they have an age gap route in that. They do, but she's 18. I love that.
Yeah, the MC's mom, and they never, like, her parents seem like they're still together, but they just don't discuss it. But her mom is moving away, I think, to America. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna go to whatever country. The MC is like, I want to finish my last year here, and so I'm gonna get a job and stuff. And her mom's like, cool, we'll just pay your rent. You just need to pay your own expenses. And she's like, cool, jamming with it, awesome. So it's like the first day of school, and in the prologue, this is where you meet all the teachers. You meet the first one, and I think that guy is actually your homeroom teacher, whose name I can't think of right now. You get to the like entrance ceremony, and that's when you see Shuya. Shuya is your childhood friend. He used to babysit you. You guys know each other, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I used to have a huge ginormous crush on Shuya. It's like a very fleeting thought though for a second, and you're like, oh my god, he's matured, because Shuya used to work in another city and he was already at a teacher job. So you remember like, oh, I remember when we used to write letters to each other. Oh, weird to see him now. I wonder what made him come to this school. Well, your friend pulls you aside and you're like, one of the teachers here, like I heard, was involved in a really big scandal, and that's why they had to come here. And I think it's that one, but I'm not sure. It was like they were involved with the student, and she's like, oh my god, that's scandalous, and then just like moves on. Like she's like, anyway, school. They go in, and Shuya ends up being your English teacher. That's like what you'll find, like that's what you learn about him or something. And then school kind of ends, and you know that Shuya, that you're part of the archery club. He's gonna supposedly be the advisor. I like that she has a more strong personality, but she has like club activities or like stuff, because in comparison like Dreamy Day, she just came back and she's like, I know nothing, I do nothing, I am nothing, and I'm a blob. Like that's how it felt at times.
Such a blank slate.
Yeah, and I get like doing the blank slate thing, because you kind of like, oh, I want to have a character that's easily like fit into, but then you're like, you give me, go girl, give us nothing. Like that's how
I agree. I feel like the only negative to that in this specific route is they did make like her lingo.
Oh, ridiculous.
I think one point she says, Sensei say what now?
She said, she'll be like, girl, huh? I'm like, nah, whoever translated this, whatever. After school, you run into like the third teacher as you're trying to find your apartment. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna go to my house. So she finally gets to the apartment that she's supposed to rent, and somebody else is there. And she's like, oh my god, what the hell? And they're basically like, I think it was that basically she didn't get there in the time frame that she was supposed to. So they just were like, there was this other person and they was double rented. So like, you're shit out of luck because you're here second. Which I would hate, because I'd be like, I'm just a little girl. Like that's what I would say. You're like, okay, well, I guess that sucks ass. She doesn't call her mom. She doesn't really call anybody. She's not like freaking out. She's just like, I'll just have to figure it out tomorrow. I'm just, one, homeless, but I'm just gonna go sleep at a manga cafe. And she is, because she doesn't start work yet. So she's like, I'll just figure it out tomorrow. I'll worry about it. She's still in her school uniform, because when would she be able to change? And as she's walking around, this like creepy guy like starts harassing her, and she's just like, please just leave me alone. Like I'm homeless. Like I don't want to deal with this. So somebody comes to save her, and like you choose, and that's like, if you choose Shuya like intervenes, and he's like, I'm not gonna let anything happen to you. Like he basically is like, you're like a little sister to me. I was like, wrong. Like don't say that. Shuya brings her back to his apartment, and he's like, just like, how could you be so irresponsible? And I kind of agree with him, but also it's like, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Like, Jesus Christ. Like, we get it. So I did mention too, I was like, her slang throws me off even in her internal thoughts, because she's just like, wow, like, calm down, homie. And it's like, no. Anyway, the next morning, she is like trying to make her feel comfort, and he's like making her like this meal that he made when they were little, which is like burnt eggs. And she's like, that is so cute. I don't like burnt eggs anymore though. Like, I don't want those. So he's like, oh, like I was just trying to make you feel relaxed. And she's like, okay, well, I was gonna relax at the manga cafe, but you stopped that. So he's like, I'll help you try to find a new place. And weirdly, he's like, let's just find you a woman's only like apartment complex. And it's like, how many are there out there in general? Like,
that makes it like harder, because you get annoyed at him. You're like, if we're looking for women's only, it's gonna take even longer for one to open up, because that's like less common. He's like, well, I'm sorry, that's the way it is.
Well, finally he's like, you're right, like I can't, anything that is like supposedly around is not available anytime soon. So like, she's like, oh my god, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So he's like, you'll just stay here, like it's fine, it's closer to the school. She does not tell him she has a job yet. And so anyway, she's like, oh my god, like I can't impose on you like that. And he's like, nonsense. I used to babysit you. It's fine. You're like family. And I'm like, oh, stop saying that. He just calls her mom, and he's like, what's goody? Like, she'll just stay here. And her mom's like, cool, yes. Like, okay. He tells her, like, here's the rules though. Like, oh, she offers to like cook all the time. Like, in exchange for this, like, I'll cook. And he's like, oh, if you really want to, for sure. And so then he's like, here's the rules. When we're at home, like, be casual. Like, that's fine. You can call me Shuya. But at school, I'm Mr. Komaki. And she, like, doesn't care. She's like, yeah, that's cool. And then, like, a grandpa, he's like, here's a pineapple candy. She's like, okay.
That was the other thing that reminded me of Yukito, because he always gives her those candies, Sakura.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like all he knows how to do to be like...
Yeah. So they're at school and like shit's cool, and then he's like, she already knew he was this archery advisor, because he tells her at home like, hey, I'm gonna be your advisor, and she's like, yeah, awesome. This is obviously a ploy so that they'll be able to hang out more often. So they go and while she's spacing out in class, they introduce her other friend Tsukishiro to help her out, and like this is going to become a pattern later that he's like always coming to her rescue. So everyone's like super curious about the new like English teacher, like, oh my god, like who's this new guy, like, oh my god. So everyone's like, are you single, are you married, like what's your type, and like what things do you like? And he's like, I like the book The Little Prince, and I am single. And I'm like, those don't go hand in hand, but okay.
Yeah, those are like the only two he answers.
She thinks in her mind like, oh my god, I loved The Little Prince. Like, I still love it. Like, oh, over the moon, oh my god. So she's like, swoon, whatever. But then he like gets back to being strict. So anyway, they're at archery club, and they are like talking about how last year they lost the championship. And so she's like, Shuya's like, yeah, you guys kind of sucked, but don't worry. Like, this year we're gonna take it. And they set it up to me at the beginning and make it seem as though there's only one meet. But as later it was revealed that that's not the case. But they're like, yeah, this year we're gonna take it. So they're like talking about that out of nowhere. She has like an internal thought. I thought that was funny, where she's like, I'm kind of out of shape. But then he's like really good at it. And I feel like they only did that to set it up to say that he's really good at the shit. And I'm like, you could have just said he was good at it. You didn't have to call her out.
Yeah, they have like the scene of him like hitting a bullseye, which also reminds me of Yukito, because he also is an archer. Oh my god.
Yeah, the bullseye scene comes at the most inappropriate time way later though. It's like very unprecedented. Like, it doesn't make sense why they had it in the time they do. But anyway, and also, even if he's good at it, he's not going to compete. He's the teacher and the advisor. Like, calm down. Like, this doesn't matter. She goes home, on her way home, and she's like, oh no, I don't have a key. And so then she has to text him. He like shows up. Like, I'll give you a key now so you can just get in and out whenever you want to. And they make this like this dramatic moment. I'm like, no, he should have just gave you a key because you also now live there. He's like, I have to be really protective of you because I'm taking care of you like your big brother would. And she's like, but you're not my brother. Like, stop saying that. I really appreciate it for like calling out. Anyway, so after they're done eating dinner, they put the CG of them like together when he picks her up to go to her room because she gets sleepy. And I don't like the character's design in this one because she does actually look like Shuya's little sister. Like, their hair color's the same and their eye color is pretty similar. So I'm like, wrong.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of like the art overall in this game. Like, I don't really like how they make the sprites shorter. I don't like the way they drew like the friend sprites, and I don't like the way they drew the MC. I like the fact that he's picking her up because that's my favorite Ichigo CG. Is like, or not CG, but the moment. I like how he picked her up in the beginning. Yeah,
so then they're in the room, and then she's like, oh, like, I have a job. And he tells her, no, like, you're too young to have a job. You don't need to work. And she's like, it's a cafe job. Calm down. And you also can't tell me what to do.
I do like that she's strong-willed like that. Like, she doesn't let him just get away with, like, telling her what to do.
Yeah, so the next day they're all at practice, and they're like, oh, let's get him, like, a welcoming gift. Everyone's like, oh, but I can't go get the gift. But Tsukishiro has free time, and he's like, I don't really, but okay. Fine, I'll just go. Like, I can go home after. So they go to this shop and decide to get an umbrella. Of all things. Well, Tsukishiro's like, oh, I can't let you walk home by yourself. Like, it's kind of late. She's like, no, I don't need you to walk me home, because she lives with her teacher. Tsukishiro's like, you don't really have a fucking choice. Like, I'm gonna go with you. She doesn't text Shuya what happened. He's like, where are, like, he's blowing her up. And it's like, she's 18. You don't have to do that. And so he's like, I'll just meet you. And she's like, please don't do that. And he just does it anyway, which that annoyed me. Well, Tsukishiro's like, what the hell? Like, what is this? So she is like, well, we can't keep a secret. Like, no, you can't keep a secret. So then he's like, tells them. And Tsukishiro really is like, well, okay, well, I'm not going to tell because I want her to get in trouble. But then Shuya wants to bring up that she lied. So he's like, you lied because you said you were going to your job after school. So she doesn't want to tell him about the gift thing though.
It's kind of like a perfect misunderstanding because like the way that could come off to him is like, oh, she's like a teenager that has a boyfriend and like doesn't want to talk about it, kind of a thing.
Tsukishiro does try to take up for her about it though. He's like, you know, like it was me, like, you know, we just didn't, like, you know, I lied too. And then she's like, nobody cares about you, dude. So back the hell up.
He just did not like Tsukishiro. He's like, bye.
Shuya just abruptly is like, if you want to date, that's fine, but like don't lie about it. And she's like, what are you talking about? Which Tsukishiro does like her, it's very clear, but like she doesn't know that. So like,
yeah, she's too dense to get that.
Then when they get back to the house though, she tries to apologize and he turns around and is like, if you want to date, I don't approve. And she's like, who are you? Like, who are you to talk to me that way? And so he's like, you're too young to have a boyfriend. She's like, I'm 18. And I never once said that I had a boyfriend, so stop saying that. So he's like, you're a child that I need to protect. And she like pops off on him and it hurts his feelings. And he's like, fine, and like pouts and leaves. And so then they go outside one day and they view the stars, which I think is like a cute thing. It's like a little prince, whatever. So they're like, yeah, like, okay. So they make up. And so then she has to talk about the present because they're gonna have the party the next day. And she's like, this is what I lied. And he was like, oh no, like I kind of suck. Like, I'm sorry for like not believing you. And she's like, yeah, me too. Anyway.
I do also want to say, like, I kind of get him in a sense. Like, it annoyed me too that he would constantly like view her as a child, but I kind of get it because he's like, well, now she's my responsibility. So if something fucks up, like, I'm the one here ruining it. Like, it was me that was supposed to, like, I talked to her mom and said I got this, and then I didn't have it. So I can see it from that perspective.
I get it, but I'm also like, she's 18 and her parents aren't that concerned in any way because they left her in another country, you know? It's like, if they consider that. Anyway, so they have the party the next day, and then she's like, oh, that he goes, that's why you were alone with him. It's like, I don't have, again, he tried to tell you that, but all right. So she starts to notice that like other girls like Shuya. At this point, she doesn't even know if she likes him. She just is like, whatever with it. But she's like, oh no, like they're always hanging out because they live together. And so like they're domestically hanging out. So then she notices even more girls and she's like, I think I might like him. Like, I don't know, but I think I do. So then she goes into her room, goes into his room without his glasses, and then she's like, oh shit, I do like him. I'm like, glasses on, huh?
I love that trope. It's like, once he takes his glasses off, he's like a stud.
Yeah, so then she's at work, and this is a really stupid thing to point out, but her boss has a hedgehog, and so the hedgehog is like around, and so the other teachers catch her working there, and they're like, oh no, not a student from school. Like, why do you all care? You're just teachers. She starts to get like self-conscious around him now that she's recognized that she probably has feelings for him, and she's like being distant and pushes him away. She's like, I need to make up for my behavior, because he's like, I see that you obviously want to be left alone, but I don't know what to do. But to me, I actually like the conflicting of like, do I like him? Do I not? What do I do? Because it's honestly like in the process of when you like somebody, you don't for sure just fall into it knowing. It is a lot of like him and hawing. And it's like when you're in close proximity, you kind of convince yourself also like, is it that we like each other or is it that we hang out all the time?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Tsukishiro though is constantly like watching her check him out. So he calls her out and he's like, do you like him? And she's like, who? And he's like, play stupid somewhere else.
I love her friends are just like, we can see everything.
And so he's like, I'm not always going to be here to catch you when like this inevitably blows up in your face. She's like, it won't blow up in my face. And then she constantly goes to Tsukishiro for advice. And he's like, I don't want to give you advice. I like you, so why would I give you advice? He doesn't tell her that, but like, it's like, read the room. Like, Jesus Christ. So he, like, when they try to make up, he awkwardly just gives her the pineapple candy again. And she's like, damn, I do love him, so I should say sorry. And so they keep practicing because they obviously have this competition that's coming up, and they get very overly dramatic about like the bows are dull or something. Then she's like, do we have money for this? And she is like, yeah, let me like look at the budget. Tsukishiro's like, oh, I'll go with you to go buy the stuff. And she is like kind of annoyed by that, but he's like, what can I say? Like, I can't stop it. And one of the other teachers is like, let's go drinking. And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go drink myself into a stupor. So,
I found this part so funny. Like, he's like, I don't know, like he's like all sad about this Tsukishiro and goes drinking.
Just get drunk. And so Yuka, which is the other friend, is like, you know, I'm not gonna do these supplementary lessons, so I'll join Tsukishiro, like, you can go. And she's like, thank God. Like, I don't want to do that. He goes home to like make Shuya dinner because like whatever, and so he comes home and he's like in a visibly better mood because she's home already. And then a couple days pass and it's raining, and so she didn't know it was gonna rain, so she forgot her umbrella. So then when you in Japan and Japanese schools, they actually have like umbrellas you can take if you forget yours. Well, they were all out. So she's like, oh, like maybe it's the perfect opportunity for me to walk home with Shuya. So she waits in the classroom. But in waiting, here comes Tsukishiro and he's like, oh, you don't have your umbrella? Like, I'll walk you home. And she's like, no. And he's like, yes. And like, she's like, oh, fuck it, fine. And so they're walking out and she sees the umbrella that she bought Shuya. So then she's like, never mind, Tsukishiro, like, I'm gonna wait for my man. It's like, you also could have just said that like 20 minutes ago. You made me do all this. So.
Also, she should have like hid herself better. Like, clearly people are gonna come out and like offer to help her because she like looks like she needs help.
Yeah, so then they walk home together and then like they're back out viewing the stars and like while she's like cleaning up her room, she finds like the letters that they used to send to each other and he's like, yeah, like those letters got me through some really hard times. And she's like, oh my god, me, little 11-year-old me, got you through like a hard time. It's like, god. She's like, I think I might be really down bad for him. So anyway, I guess practice has been going smooth and they're like in this like locker room area and they're like putting stuff up, but she's so self-conscious about him because of the letter shit. So she's like, oh, like, she's just fucking around being dumb and like accidentally almost falls. Well, she's like paying attention to Shuya, she falls and he's like trying to catch her, but he's not close enough, so Tsukishiro does. But the bow is like hit his arm and, you know, because she's probably not like 10 pounds, he catches her and like dislocates his shoulder barely, basically. Shuya feels really bad. I don't know why he feels bad because he couldn't have prevented it, but like MC is like, oh my god, I'll be your slave day and night. And I'm like, that's a lot.
Yeah, she really goes out on a limb and you're like, dang, is this like a whole new like romance story with her and Tsukishiro with the slave comment?
Yeah, because it could like mess up his competition chances. I get why she's doing it, but it's like whatever. So she ends up spending a lot of time with Tsukishiro, which means she's not spending time with Shuya. And so like things are basically kind of awkward between them because they haven't been hanging out. And then he's like, I bought tickets to the planetarium. Do you want to go? When you buy tickets, by the way, there are specific dates to them. They're not like you just like, they're for any day, Monday through Thursday. Like, you usually pick a day. I don't know how everything works, but they don't have like it's not like the expiration date is this. Like, that's how it works.
Yeah, you usually have to like reserve a time slot.
So then they decide to go on Wednesday, which I don't know why they don't decide to go on a fucking Sunday, but okay. I think they say like, we don't want to run into anybody else from school. Like, nobody's going, but all right. And it's in a dark place, but fine. The day that it's supposed to happen, she basically tells Tsukishiro, like, thank God you should be better because I'm done helping your ass. And then all of a sudden, he's like, damn, like, there's some pain and pinching in my shoulder. So they go to the hospital, but Shuya sees them. So he's like, no, not again. So then she, like, makes it at, like, the last minute to this. And then he's like, I almost didn't show up. I've been like, It's like, I think that you should honestly just date Tsukishiro. Like, you guys are a better match. Like, you should date him. She's like, are you stupid? Are you dense? Like, what are you talking about? I thought this was like a date. So like, it's just really awkward between them.
Also, it's like someone had to go to the hospital. Like, I'm sorry that I missed the planetarium date. Like, I love the planetarium, but like, I didn't want to be at the hospital. Like, I had to go.
She technically made it on time and you're just being manipulative. They were in class the next day and some kids in class are like, oh, you and Tsukishiro are super close. You guys are dating. And they both deny it. Oh, that's not the case, blah, blah, blah. So Shuya comes in and is like slams on the desk and he's like, don't be making up rumors. Da, da, da. It's like, you should have stayed in your place because you are not the one to talk. So then the student turned around and was like, oh yeah, Mr. Pedo, because let me tell you about your ass. I heard, and they just basically tell that that Shuya hooked up with a student at his last school and that's why he's here. And he doesn't say no, he's just like, we won't talk about that now. It's like,
so you're obviously like, what? I remember being shook when this part came out. I was like, what do you mean?
Yuka's like, yeah, remember that story I told you at the entrance ceremony? This is it. And she's like, oh no. When they're at home or whatever, she's like, I'm gonna buck up and get the courage to ask him. He tells her. So the story is basically when he was at his last school, he was also a guidance counselor. There was a student that was having a really hard home life and he kind of like globbed onto any like positive adult attention and she like conflated this idea that she was in love with Shuya. They wanted to be together, so she told everybody that they were dating, but they weren't. But he didn't like deny her or decline her, like he just avoided it. So the school was like, we're gonna expel her and you should leave. And so like that's basically what happened. So he didn't do anything wrong technically, but like didn't do anything right. He probably shouldn't have done it at all. So probably should have just been like, hey, you're getting delusions. But he doesn't defend it because he's basically in the same situation now, but he does like her, like the person. And her stupid, after he tells her, pours his heart out, she's like, why did you tell me that?
Oh, that pissed me off. Like, she's like, tell me. And then she's like, why on earth would you say that to me?
You asked. And so she's like, she thinks that this is a good time to admit her feelings for him. And he's like, no, I don't want to hear it. Which is the right thing to do. Like, why would you tell me you have feelings for me?
I know, of all times now when I'm telling you that I've gotten serious consequences for helping out a student, and then now you're gonna go and do this.
Yeah, so that happened. And so then she's like, because they had been keeping a journal between each other, and they were like, oh, journaling, like we love each other in a journal. And he's like, don't worry about me. So she goes the next day and tells Tsukishiro the truth. After she's like, don't tell anybody. She's just like, Tsukishiro. And then they're like, what if we just tell the archery team and like whatever? And this is a really stupid formulated plan, and they just make it work because it's not how it works. They're like, we'll just start a new rumor that didn't happen. It's like, that's not how it works.
I know, they thought they were so, like, they thought they ate with that. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Well, then the school, or like the other students at school, they're like, that makes sense. It's like, what?
Yeah, it all goes according to plan. It works perfectly. And I was like, what? Also, I forgot about the journaling, but that's like one of my favorite things they do is they like write, because they keep missing each other. So they write like what they've been doing to each other every day. I thought that was so cute.
I can see why you think that's cute. And I'm about to just dash the dreams of that's kind of stupid because they have phones so that they can text each other. So
I know, but
why would you need a journal? It's not that romantic. I can text you. And oh, by the way, we fucking live together. We see each other constantly.
I guess because like if he was like they were texting each other a bunch, like I don't know, it could be weird, like because if they like saw like if his phone was out during like school or whatever, I don't know. There's not a real good reason. I just thought it was romantic, even though it didn't make sense.
I'm not saying you're incorrect. You're cute for thinking that. I'm just demonic and like that's dumb. No. And I'm talking shit like we live together and saw each other every single day and text each other 100 times a day. So it's not like I don't understand. Tsukishiro tells her that he has feelings for her and she's like, no. So then she's like, after the competition, I'm gonna tell him how I feel. Like it's resolved. So they're at the competition, this huge big thing, and it's like reliant on her hitting the bullseye one more time. But because she's so distracted by her feelings for him that she hasn't confessed, she misses it and they lose the competition. And I'm thinking everybody's gonna be devastated, blows by blows. Everyone's like, oh, don't worry about it. There's other competitions that are gonna come up.
Yeah, they're like, we got like 6 next week. It's like, what? Like what? we were building this up like this is the one grand champ and we lost last year.
Yeah, you made it seem like there wasn't. I really hated that. Like, it made
me
so
too.
mad.
That made me upset too.
So then, anyway, like she decides to try to confess again and he's like, I simply don't want to hear it. And then she's like, you don't got a damn choice. So he kind of is like denies her, but then later when she's like practicing, she's like, next competition, I'm really gonna slay it. He's like, I'm just kidding. I can't deny my feelings and I like love you and it's like done. And that's kind of it for it. And I would say this isn't meant to be anything but more of like a slice of life. Like this is actually a perfect plot for a J-drama or like a very cute small short manga. This would be a very perfect story for that. I think it was cute, slice of life, domestic, day to day. It just like, again, it had the right dramatic in the right places because you're like, calm down. Like, no way. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was really sweet and cute. There was no action. If there was, it would have ruined it for me. But
yeah, I feel like in playing like Kyohei and then you playing Shuya and like us just describing it, I think you can kind of get the sense like with Voltage, like they do tend to like just kind of like fumble on certain plot points or like they have to too quickly wrap something up because that's just like the nature of the apps. It's just quicker story consumption at a cheaper price and it's like more romance focused. So if you guys like that kind of stuff and you've never tried Voltage, like those are the pros and cons, and I think these are like really great routes to try and play if you're interested in either like a confident flirtatious type or like the more mousy strict professional type. Like those are like I don't want to say like Big Brother type, but like kind of Big Brother type.
Yeah, they're both really good routes to start with. They're not anything too heavy. Voltage is always a starter place, and I think that they have really powerful stories and really whatever, but those are really good ones.
Yeah, so that's it. Like this is our podcast. That's really it. Thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to you next time.